Now, exchange rate has also a very important part to play in your portfolio. Today, $1 is equal to how much? 83 rupees. The currency, keeps changing. About 5 years back, it was 73 rupees, or maybe 3 years back, it was $1 was equal to 73. 1950, 1 rupee was $1 was equal to 4 rupees. The dollar has been appreciating against rupee. And how does the exchange rate behave, and how do the exchange rate change? There are many factors to it. Okay, when I say why the dollar is appreciating against Indian rupee always, why not Indian rupee is appreciating? But if you look at the graph of dollar versus Indian rupee, then you will find the Indian rupee has also appreciated a little bit. But the trajectory is, if you look at the long 30, 40 years of history, the dollar has always appreciated against the rupee. Okay, let's look at the graph. USD to INR. Okay, so let's see, maximum, for example. Look at, this is the graph which is there on your screen. Uh, Dollar versus rupee. Today, the $1 is equal to 83.34. If you see, maximum period, maybe it is giving around 2000. From 2000 to 2023, the dollar was, in 2000 was how much? Approximately 30 rupees, isn't it? ये जो है 31.42, and today it is 81. Okay, 83. So now, what's the reason for the dollar appreciating against the rupee? Any reason? एक reason बताओ, कोई सा भी सोच के बताओ. Okay, hold on. Here are very good, because almost like 40% of the international trade, between any currency pair, USD versus rupee, or USD versus dollar, or sorry, USD versus pound, or USD versus euro, ये जो trade है, USD with any pair of other currency, any other currency is about captures about almost like 40 to 50% of the trade in the world. So he says, because the dollar is the international currency, okay, or is the currency of the world, so it actually appreciates against that's the reason for the Indian rupee depreciating. So that is one reason. I'm saying whether it's right or wrong, I'm just why the dollar appreciates against the rupee. Okay. What's your name? Arun? He says that there is a because our imports are more and our exports are less. So there is more dollar demand versus the rupee demand. So the dollar demand is more. When we are importing, so we have to buy dollars. Indians have to buy dollars. So they have to convert rupee into dollar. So demand of rupee goes up. And then our exports are less. Our exports are less. So that means we are selling, abroad less. So there is an adverse trade of balance. ठीक है, वो मतलब import export में कैसे चल गया? Your point is well taken that your imports are more. So that is the demand and supply game. To put it right, the demand of dollar is more, okay, and that's the reason that why the dollar is rising. What happened? You look at the data. I'll just show you the data. It's readily available. If you look at the import versus export data, roughly there is about 15 billion to 20 billion dollars gap between the import and exports. There is a trade deficit when we talk about, to the extent about either 15 or 20 over the long period. Our imports are also rising, our exports are also rising, but our imports are rising at much faster pace, or rather rising in such a pace that there is always a difference. The imports are always more than the export. Incentive to improve the exports, it's happening, but since we rely on imports, almost like 40% of the imports are crude oil, and the crude oil rises, our deficit also rises. Okay, so that can be one of the reason. Demand and supply. No, the main. Inflation rate differential between the two countries. Inflation now, if you look at the inflation between India and US, for example. Over a long period of time, forget about the last 1 or 2 years, when after the war happened, particularly the Ukraine and Russia war, has actually made a lot of difference to this thing. So the inflation has started going up all across the world. Even US, we are having around close to about 4% or 5% inflation. But traditionally, the inflation in US was around 2%. Before this war happened, inflation in US was below 2%. And in India, it was around 6%. अगर हम एवरेज देखें, इंडिया की इन्फ्लेशन इज हॉवरिंग अराउंड 6% एंड यूएस वाज 2%. एंड दैट इज समथिंग टू विद द इन्फ्लेशन ऑफ दैट कंट्रीज. अगर इन्फ्लेशन ज्यादा होगी तो इंटरेस्ट रेट भी ज्यादा होंगे. इंटरेस्ट रेट्स इन बोथ द कंट्रीज विल गो अप. सो देयर इज अ थ्योरी विच इज कॉल्ड इंटरेस्ट रेट डिफरेंशियल और इन्फ्लेशन रेट डिफरेंशियल. तो हम दोनों कंट्रीज में 4% का लगभग 4% का differential rate था between India and US. Okay, so how do we know that? Now that means, what does it mean? It means every year, because of the fundamental reason, dollar will appreciate by 4% to Indian rupee. That should happen because there is an inflation rate differential between the two countries. Because you know, somebody is earning dollars. So because inflation has happened more in India, so he'll able to buy less in India without the fault of the dollar. So the dollar purchasing power should go up and Indian rupee purchasing power should go down. So to balance that, the dollar goes up so that the same dollar can buy the same thing. Suppose, for example, one bread which was costing about 80 rupees or 75 rupees a year back. That time the dollar versus Indian rupee rate was $1 was 75. Today, suppose the same bread is costing 80 rupees. The dollar will go up to 80. So that the same dollar can buy one, bread loaf, okay, without any, because the inflation has happened in India, not in this thing. Only the differential. अगर सपोज अमेरिका में जीरो है और इंडिया में बढ़ गई है तो उतने से डॉलर भी बढ़ जाएगा. इट विल हैपन इंटरेस्ट रेट डिफरेंशियल, दोनों का डिफरेंस होगा. सपोज आई एम जस्ट सेइंग वी कैन चेक द रेट in 1950 and today what we have 2023. Okay, suppose the rate, hypothetically I'm picking the rate was 5 rupees and today it is 83. आज डॉलर का रेट कितना है 83 और 1950 में लगभग रेट जो था. तो दिस इज द डिफरेंस. नाउ व्हाट आई एम सेइंग इज दिस minus this. How many years? 73 years. Okay, 5 rupees has become 83. Okay, so let me just use the formula. Which formula is going to use? Future value. So the rate is how much? 73. ये मैं यहां पर इसको टच कर सकता हूं. 73 साल. सॉरी, एक सेकेंड, रेट क्या देख रहा हूं? ये तो एनपीआर आना चाहिए ना. मैंने कौन सा लगाया था? फ्यूचर वैल्यू. नो, मुझे लगाना चाहिए था रेट. I want to know what is the rate of appreciation of dollar versus rupee. Okay, NPR is how much? 73. Okay, and it was 5 rupees. You invested 5 rupees. How many years back? 73. And today the value has become to how much? 83. Okay, so how much is the kind of a return you are getting on dollar? Suppose आपके पास एक डॉलर था 1950 में, आपने 4 रुपए में खरीदा था. आज उसकी वैल्यू कितनी होगी? 83. हाउ मेनी इयर्स? 73 years. So you want to know what is the kind of rate of return you have got. If suppose you pick up the same dollar back from your drawer and you go and sell, you will get how much? 83. So how much you have gained? 4%. So roughly I say the inflation rate in India is about 6%. In America it is 2%. Okay. So differential is how much? 6 minus 2, 4%. तो वही आपका जो है डॉलर की भी वही ट्रेजेक्टरी है. ओवर द लॉन्ग रन द फंडामेंटल्स ऑफ द टू इकोनॉमी विल प्ले आउट सो दैट द डॉलर विल अप्रिशिएट एट द रेट ऑफ 4%, विच इज द इंटरेस्ट रेट डिफरेंशियल और इन्फ्लेशन रेट डिफरेंशियल बिटवीन टू कंट्रीज. बट अगर हम आज देखें और आज चेक करें तो आज डॉलर बढ़ रहा है 2% के हिसाब से. क्यों? बिकॉज द इंटरेस्ट रेट डिफरेंशियल हैज नैरोड डाउन. बिकॉज इन्फ्लेशन इन अमेरिका हैज ऑल्सो गॉन अप टू अबाउट 4%. नाउ भी 4% के आसपास है और इंडिया में सपोज 6% है या 5.5% है. तो नाउ द गैप इज ओनली 1.5%. ओके, इफ यू लुक एट द लास्ट 2 years, then it has gone up by only at the rate of 2% or 1.5%. This is the last 73 years data that I'm talking about. Have you got it? So the dollar, any country, any currency pair, whether it is USD versus INR, or it is a pound versus INR, or euro versus INR, or yen versus INR, the country which is having higher inflation rate or the country which is having a lower inflation rate will actually will appreciate against the other currency. Fine. हमारे यहाँ क्या है? अमेरिका का इंटरेस्ट रेट कितना है? 2%. एंड हमारे यहाँ 6 है. सो दैट मीन्स अमेरिकन करेंसी इज गोइंग टू अप्रिशिएट अगेंस्ट इंडियन रूपी. Fine. Suppose, for example, in England, the inflation rate was about 3%. India is 6%. So that means the gap will be only 3%. So that means the pound is going to appreciate at a long rate at 3%. Is that okay? Because it is because that, I gave an example of the purchasing power example, which actually fits into this. Why the currency is appreciating, why the dollar should appreciate. Why? Because it is going to buy the same goods in India, which it could buy about 2 years back, and now because of the India's inflation is more, so the rate of dollar will go up, isn't it? So dollar will go up so that it can buy the same basket of goods in India. Is that clear? So that is the main reason what Ramveer has pointed out. Okay, now because the demand and supply, as many people said, कि imports are more, exports are less, or international currency है, या आपका किसी और का भी reason था, that is the demand and supply. The demand and supply situation can affect only in short run. Okay, शॉर्ट रन में जो जो डॉलर वर्सेस रूपी का रेट चल रहा है वो इंपैक्ट हो सकता है, बिकॉज सपोज आवर इंपोर्ट इज मोर, the dollar rate will go up more. Okay, but actually it is checked by, because a lot of people are investing in India, the foreign investors. Suppose they put a lot of money, they put $20 billion in a month. Our trade deficit is 20 billion. Our imports are more than exports by 20 billion. But foreigners have invested 20 billion. That means the rate will remain the same, because a lot of money has come back into India by way of investment. हमारा जो ट्रेड डेफिसिट है वो तो हमें डॉलर को बढ़ा रहा है, लेकिन जो पैसे इंडिया में आ रहे हैं, बिकॉज पीपल आर फाइंडिंग इंडिया इज अ वेरी गुड डेस्टिनेशन, सो बिकॉज ऑफ दैट we will have a lot of money flowing in India, and that can check. So there can be demand supply because of many reasons. So one of the reasons which we mentioned was the foreigners who are investing in India, either through FDI route or FII route. There are two routes, okay, through which the money comes to India from abroad. One is called FDI, foreign direct investment, and that is called the foreign institutional investment, or FPI. The FII money is going to the stock market. FDI's money is going into basically in building new factories or investments in India. So there are two kinds of investment which happen in India when we receive money from abroad in terms of dollars or in any other currency. They can be one which is permanent in nature, which is an FDI, where people are investing in India and setting up their factories. New Apple showroom is being opened, or new company has started a new like Honda has started a new motorcycle factory in India. So they put a lot of money. So all that money will be counted as FDI. But if the foreigners, they start investing money in India in stock market, that money will be called FII route or FPI route. Is that okay? So दो जगह से पैसा आता है, FII और FDI. अगर वो पैसा इतना ज्यादा है कि हमारे ट्रेड डेफिसिट को कवर कर ले, तो फिर हम जो है वहीं के वहीं रह जाते हैं डॉलर. या अगर सपोज FDI FI मनी इज मोर देन द ट्रेड डेफिसिट, तो इंडियन रुपी इज गोइंग टू एप्रिशिएट. Okay, isn't it? If suppose we are having a trade deficit of $10 billion and money has flown in India $10 billion, so we have a surplus of $10 billion. Fine. So in that case, the rupee demand is more than the dollar demand in that particular week. Okay. और कभी कभी इंडिया से पैसा फ्लो भी होना शुरू हो जाता है. COVID time, after that, a lot of money had flown out of India also. Okay, let's come back to this. Let's see this. Okay, let's see 1 month. Okay, अब देखो एक महीने की क्या दिख रही है आपको. 1 month back, the rate was 83.34, and today the rate is how much? Same. Of course, it has actually here that rupee has appreciated. यहां तक तो डॉलर एप्रिशिएट हो रहा था, यहां तक, फिर यहां रुपी एप्रिशिएट हुआ, यहां 83.04 हो गया, यहां फिर डॉलर वापस हो गया. अगर हम एक साल देखें तो ये देखिए आप, तो एक साल में फिर भी ये 82.62 था, इट हैज एप्रिशिएटेड बाय 83.34. Okay, if you calculate the difference, about only 1.5%. Because the interest rate differential with the country is narrowed down, because the inflation in America has also gone up, and India में inflation check पे है. Fine, only because the crude oil prices go up, so India में spike मिलती है inflation में. कभी अनियन के प्राइस बढ़ गए या कभी टमाटो के प्राइस बढ़ गए, तो फिर हमारे को inflation में बढ़ जाता है. So if you look at the 2 years this thing, the difference is not much. Fine, because the inflation rate or interest rate differential with the two countries have narrowed down. It is not at around 4%, which it used to be. Okay, fine. Is that clear? ये समझ आना बहुत जरूरी है कि that the foreign exchange also plays. हाँ, आप पूछिए कोई क्वेश्चन, क्या पूछे? Market goes down. When then the dollar will appreciate. देखो आपने बोला था कि पहला क्वेश्चन था कि one is trade deficit and we all know we have a trade deficit. We all know we had never had a trade surplus. Only China is having a trade surplus because they are exporting for the world. Okay, वहां से सब लोग पूरी दुनिया खरीदती है. So only China is one country where there is a trade surplus. The rest of all the countries in the world, most of the countries have a trade deficit. Okay, तो वो ट्रेड डेफिसिट तो हमेशा उस करेंसी को, डॉलर को अप्रिशिएट कराता ही रहेगा. अब आते हैं हम इन्वेस्टमेंट साइड पे, विच एक्चुअली चेक्स द डॉलर. यू नो व्हेन अदरवाइज तो हमारी करेंसी तो डेप्रिशिएट होती रहती. वो कभी कभी हमारी करेंसी अप्रिशिएट भी हो जाती है. क्यों? बिकॉज इन दैट पीरियड द मनी हैज फ्लोन इनटू इंडिया फ्रॉम अब्रॉड. सपोज एक महीने में $1 बिलियन आ गया. So in that time we find there is a stability in the currency exchange rates. Okay, और एक महीने में $5 बिलियन आ गया. अब कभी कभी $10 बिलियन निकल भी जाता है एक महीने में, तो उसमें हमारा ट्रेड डेफिसिट भी है और 10 बिलियन. तो दैट टाइम वी विल गो डाउन ड्रास्टिकली. We will depreciate against the dollar the most in that period when there is an outflow on account of foreign money moving out, but there is an FDI which is always most of the time is positive. जो FDI है वो पॉजिटिव रह रहा है. FII मनी इज मोर वोलेटाइल. वो पैसा आता जाता, उसका कोई सर पैर नहीं है. Because sometimes they find that the China has become more lucrative, so they'll pull out the money and put it in China, or they will put it in Vietnam, or they will put it in Indonesia. So the foreigners who are sitting on the sidelines, they are knowing that where to put the money at different time. So if they think that India is doing well, they'll pour the money into India. अभी पैसा इंडिया में आना शुरू नहीं है. They're saying next year is going to be very good year for India. Lot of money will start coming in India. Okay, हाँ जी, आपका क्वेश्चन. हाँ. So that's a very good question. Now there is nobody who regulates the foreign exchange market except the RBI regulates, the government regulates basically what kind of transactions. We are going to do that only. Okay, in my next slides only. We have capital account and current account. So current account mein the market has become free. We can buy anything from abroad, we can sell anything from abroad. But if you have to buy a house in America or house in England or buy some factory outside, then we have to take a permission of the RBI. So there are certain places we have to take the permission of either the Reserve Bank of India or Government of India. Government of India also gives all the powers to Reserve Bank of India to dictate and decide about because government makes a policy and which RBI is implementing it. Or sometimes there are certain body of government which actually decides about this thing. So वो government करती है indirectly, whereas forex markets are not regulated. They're international markets. It's a market which is basically in the air, online market, which is happening all across the world, unregulated. सिर्फ मार्केट फोर्सेस डिसाइड करते हैं क्या रेट होगा. जो रेट होता है कि आज 83 पे खुलेगा. अब now if RBI thinks that the rate goes to 87 tomorrow, the RBI may intervene. What they'll do, they will start selling dollars from their forex reserves to cool down the dollar rate, because they don't want so much of fluctuation happening in a matter of just 1 or 2 months. So RBI role क्या होता है, when they find that the forex markets are heated, so they will intervene. They will either purchase dollars or they will sell dollars depending on the situation. If they think the dollar has moved too quickly, too fast, and they want to bring it down to a level, because then the imports will become very costlier. Crude oil is rising, the dollar is also rising, so it is going to cause inflation in India. So RBI will start selling dollars from the reserves. They are having about $600 billion of reserves with them. Okay, so they'll sell that to cool down and bring down the rate of the dollar. So they can intervene the currency exchange rate. Okay, so we have done a little bit. So just read this. Okay. Now, if we know that the dollar is always appreciating against the Indian rupees. Indian rupee also appreciate, but only for a short while. But then the trajectory is because the interest rate differential is in favor of America. So we'll always find the American dollars to appreciate against the rupee unless our inflation rate drops below the inflation rate of America. If that happens sometime, we are going to have the reverse order. Okay, suppose you are an investor. Either you can be a foreign investor putting money in India, or you can be Indian investor buying foreign stocks. ठीक है, दो चीजें होती है कि या तो अब क्योंकि हमारा वेल्थ मैनेजमेंट है तो हम इन्वेस्टर हैं. ओके, वी कैन लुक इट फ्रॉम द पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू ऑफ द फॉरेन इन्वेस्टर हु इज पुटिंग मनी इन इंडिया, और वी कैन लुक इट as if we are investing from outside. We are going and invest in Microsoft or Apple or any company abroad. So we will just focus on that. Reverse will be for द अदर वे राउंड। इसका जो ठीक रिवर्स होगा वो फॉरेनर के लिए होगा। ओके, नाउ सपोज एन इंडियन इन्वेस्टर वॉट टू इन्वेस्ट यूएसडी $1 million, यानी $10 लाख आपने इन्वेस्ट करने हैं, ऑफ अ कंपनी ऑन अ न्यूयॉर्क स्टॉक एक्सचेंज एट द एक्सचेंज रेट ऑफ यूएसडी 83। द अमाउंट विल बी 8.3 करोड़। अब $10 million आपने 83 रुपीज के हिसाब से आपने लगा दिए स्टॉक एक्सचेंज में। कहा, इंस्टेड ऑफ बाइंग बॉम्बे स्टॉक एक्सचेंज में ना लगा के आपने न्यूयॉर्क स्टॉक एक्सचेंज में माइक्रोसॉफ्ट, एप्पल, आई मीन ऑल अदर कंपनीज देयर यू हैव बॉट, फेसबुक, आपने वो सब खरीद ली। और कितना पैसा लगा आपका? 8.3 करोड़। देयर आर लॉट ऑफ पीपल हु डू दैट। ओके, सो 8.3 करोड़ एक इन्वेस्टर का लगा हुआ। ओके, नाउ if the investment to appreciate, suppose the investment you had put was how much? $1 million. अभी वहां 20% आपकी बढ़ गई। ओके, तो आपका 1 मिलियन कितना हो गया? 1.2 मिलियन। सो यू हैव मेड अ 20% गेन, which would have booked, the investor would have booked the returns on New York Exchange, which is 20% in dollar terms. तो आपको डॉलर टर्म्स में कितना फायदा हुआ? 20%. The return in rupee terms would depend upon the exchange rate. If the US dollar has appreciated to 1 USD 84, आपने जब खरीदा था 83 का था, अब तो 84 का हो गया, so that is 1.2%. तो इसका मतलब डॉलर भी आपका 1.2% बढ़ गया एक साल के अंदर। ओके, then the New York stock investment would be valued at 1.2 into 84, that will be 10.08 करोड़। तो आपका जो 1.2 बिलियन डॉलर था वो हो जाएगा 10 करोड़ 8 लाख का। ओके, then the gain in rupee term will be 10.08 minus 8.3, so that means you have gained how much? 21.4%. Is that okay? Fine. So आपका जो गेन हुआ 20% गेन हुआ आपका, बिकॉज द डॉलर, आपकी इन्वेस्टमेंट जो थी वो 20% बढ़ गई, और बाकी जो गेन हो रहा है दैट इज बिकॉज ऑफ द डॉलर रेट। ओके, द 20% अपीयरिंग इन द इन्वेस्टमेंट टुगेदर विद 1.2 एप्रिसिएशन द करेंसी डिलीवर्ड अ रूपी रिटर्न ऑफ 21.4%। ठीक है, द रूपी रिटर्न कैन ऑल्सो बी कैलकुलेटेड 1 + 20% इंटू 1 + 1.2 - 1। ये फॉर्मूला लगा के हम निकाल सकते हैं, रिटर्न आ गई 21.4। तो आपने दो तरीके से गेन करा, एक तो आपको वहां पर आपका स्टॉक प्राइस बढ़ गए, आपको 20% वो गेन हो गया, और आपका 1.2% डॉलर टर्म में गेन हो गया। ओके, नाउ ठीक उसी प्रकार फॉरेनर हु इज इन्वेस्टिंग इन इंडिया, यहां उसको 25% रिटर्न मिला और वहां उसको डॉलर में चपत लगी, तो उसका रिटर्न 25 नहीं आएगा, उसका रिटर्न 22-23 आएगा। फाइन। सो व्हेन द फॉरेनर्स बिलीव दैट, बिकॉज फॉरेनर्स नो that the dollar is going to appreciate against the rupee and rupee is going to depreciate. So whatever earning they are going to make, there will be some earning which will be set off because the rupee is going to depreciate against the dollar, isn't it? Fine. So if they think that in rupee in India is going to, we have going to a very good return, then only they are going to put, because they are going to suffer in dollar terms. Their returns will be suffering. Here, India will be always gaining. Indian investors will be making two kind of return. One return because his foreign portfolio has gone up. Second, because the exchange rate. But when you invest, because in this example we are assuming 20% return, but actually अमेरिका में जब इन्वेस्ट करते हो तो 5 या 6% रिटर्न आपको मिलती है, और 1% 1.5% मिलती है डॉलर टर्म में, तो आपको 7 मिलती है। इंडिया में इन्वेस्ट करते हो आपको 15% मिलती है। दैट्स व्हाई वी डोंट गो एंड इन्वेस्ट मोस्ट ऑफ द टाइम इन फॉरेन कंट्रीज, बिकॉज वी नो द रिटर्न्स इन अमेरिका आर लिमिटेड। फाइन, अनलेस वी फाइंड दैट सम स्टॉक्स आर ग्रोइंग एट अ वेरी गुड पेस। ये नहीं, ऑन एन एवरेज बता रहा हूँ, like Microsoft may grow about 20% in a year. Fine, if you put all the investment in Microsoft or Apple. Fine.
But exchange rate में कुछ percentage
हाँ जी,
exchange के करवाते हैं।
हाँ, that's a commission.
Commission, no?
हाँ
That also be factored in this.
हाँ, वो मैं अभी अब बाद में टच करते हैं, वो इतना ज्यादा नहीं होगा कि आपका जो उसको पोर्टफोलियो को हिला दे। ओके, सो इफ इंस्टेड द यूएसडी had depreciated by 2%, अगर उल्टा सिनेरियो होता तो आपको फिर क्या लगती है, आपको 17.6% रिटर्न मिलती। इज दैट ओके? फाइन, आई विल कम टू योर पॉइंट। सो इसको, हाँ, यही बताया हुआ उसने, आगे ये पढ़ो। सो दिस आई टोल्ड इंटरेस्ट रेट डिफरेंशियल थ्योरी या इन्फ्लेशन रेट डिफरेंशियल, जो दोनों का इंटरेस्ट रेट डिफरेंशियल होगा उसके हिसाब से द करेंसी विच कंट्री विच इज हैविंग अ लोअर rate of interest will appreciate against the country which is having a higher rate of interest.